Well, Saturday morning, I felt like doing a video. Why not? I haven't done one in a little while on a Saturday, so here we go. All right, this one here is a little one. It's called Walking in Wisdom. Be walking in wisdom toward those outside. Colossians 4:5. These words follow immediately upon the reference to the secret of Christ. In Ephesians 5:15, we have a similar exhortation, but nothing is said of those outside. This is another of those delicate touches which distinguish the two epistles. For the secret of Christ brings us into much closer relation to unbelievers by creation and reconciliation in which they share than the secret of Ephesians, in which they have no part. And how is it possible to walk in wisdom toward our fellow saints or toward the world without a grasp of the great secrets which affect each so vitally? These alone will revolutionize the attitude of our hearts toward them and enable us to act in accord with God's purpose for them. It is wisdom to deal with men in accord with God's will and purpose concerning them. If we imagine that those outside are doomed to destruction or eternal torment, it is practically impossible to avoid a hardening of the heart in regard to them, which will lead us to think and act contrary to the basic truths of their creation and reconciliation and love. Thinking of them as so much waste in God's operations in turn reflects upon his wisdom and love. These false conceptions of God's creation and goal outside the sun of his love make a wise walk toward those outside well nigh impossible. But when we see the place of everyone in God's plans, it will soften our hearts and steady our heads, and we will be enabled to recognize his handiwork in the most worthless and the most antagonistic of his creatures. Looked at apart from God's purpose, the present era, like those before it, is vanity and a feeding on the wind. There's much talk of evolution and there's much real revolution, but the world as a whole seems to be slipping down into an abyss instead of climbing up into a paradise. Of what use is all the work and woe with which we are surrounded? We know that God will yet make excellent use of it. Man's day will reveal man's failure and futility. This is of no value in itself, but a surpassing worth in humbling man and in bringing him to accept and appreciate God's grace. In this way, the wicked era will be reclaimed in due time, yet wisdom will anticipate and use the background of human incapacity and hate in order to display the fullness of God's competency and love. Not only are we to deal graciously among ourselves, Ephesians 4:32, but our conduct with those outside should also be governed by this precious quality. Once we know that even they were created in love and will be reconciled by the blood of Christ's cross, we will recognize in their present state only a temporary estrangement from God, in which evil and sin play a painful yet salutary part. Far from harsh condemnation, we will sympathize with them in their condition and speak and act in faith, knowing that they will yet fulfill the object of their creation. When God becomes all in them, what if they are vessels of God's indignation now? In due time, he will use them for his glory. We, the vessels of his grace, have no more right to his favor than those without. May this thought humble us before them. Our Lord called his disciples the salt of the earth, Matthew 5:13. They alone could stay its corruption. Perhaps nowhere in the rottenness of this world more evident than in its utterances. Not only should our speech with them be gracious, but free from decadent foulness which characterize much of human intercourse. More than that, it should be a seasoning and a preservative counteracting the decay all around us. And what is more effective for this than an exultant knowledge of God's grand goal? when all that is corruptible will have given place to that which is incorruptible and glorious. A heart overflowing with expectation in the future, which is in store for all of God's creatures, is the best preparation for meeting and answering the questions of those outside. Apart from this knowledge, the world have many queries, to which even the saint cannot give a satisfactory reply. Why does God allow such terrible things to occur? Such questions come from the lips of those who know nothing about God. And how few are able to show that God does not, quote unquote, allow them to happen, but brings them about for his glory and our blessing. As a result, the deity of most real believers is only a second or third rate God, small g, who needs to be excused for his dereliction, that must be the vernacular, of duty and defended for his impotence. We should never be at a loss to answer questions of the godless in regard to God's present operations and his prospective goal. This is seen fully only in the secret of Christ, which it is our privilege and duty to manifestation of Christ through us, to the world around us. So that unlike Ephesian truth, which is only for the saints and can only be grasped by these under circumstances which are all too rare in these days, the secret of Christ should have a powerful influence on our walk and talk with those outside the family of faith. In measure, it should be manifested by our conduct in the world as well as by our witnesses as to the saints. May each one of us pray this prayer and seek to fulfill it in our own words and work. Article done by A.E. Nock. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And I just got this in the mail 2 days ago, so I'm actually going to go through this whole thing next week. And it's the secret of Christ. It's realization. The secret of Christ. It's manifestation. And the blood of Christ's cross. There you are. You know, I know we use, somebody mentioned this to me. We use the word cross because it's written in the Concordant version. Anybody understanding how Christ was crucified on a storos or upstander, which is a pail or a stake, piece of wood, an upstanding piece of wood with no cross piece. That's what I wanted to give you today, because that's important to understand that. So when you say the word cross, don't say it lightly. Understand what it means when you're saying the word cross. Because the world of Christendom say the word cross, and they have no clue what it is that Christ was crucified on. He hung and suffered agony for 6 hours on that stake on Golgotha. So yeah, we understand what the word means. So when you're using it, use it with definite understanding. You know, anybody can say the cross. Okay, what does that mean? You know, and usually if you're speaking to an unbeliever and you're giving them truth, it's good to explain that word to them, because as soon as they hear the word cross, they go right to religion, because that's the symbol of Christendom. It's a pagan symbol. Comes from Egyptian times. That cross piece is not there on the true crucifixion that happened. All right. My son and I are going to get going very soon. The next upcoming Saturdays, it's coming. We're going to have the video equipment. And this is a good thing, because I want to make quality videos. And my son really wants to make them too. But we haven't done a video together in several weeks because he is waiting for that equipment. He wants the real deal. And that's awesome. And that is coming. I thank God. I thank God that he is the provider of all. He will bring it about. It's not our own will, it's God's will when it comes about. We don't stress and fuss and muss about it. And we don't need to. Because when God makes it happen, He will provide for it. I also want to let you know that I applied for government benefits. It's called CERB, Canadian Emergency Response Benefit. So, Lord willing, I'm hoping I will get that. So, at least the application's in. We'll see. But I love you all. Have a wonderful Saturday. We will see you Monday.